Alright guys, so I've had a few people ask how I shallow rig my big shads, or just rig my big shads in general. So I thought I'd do a quick video just showing how to rig them basically, and how I rig them anyway. Because it is a bit complicated if you've never used them before, so yeah. Quick video, thought it might help some people out. There's loads of different ways you can do it, but I'm just going to show a couple of different ways that I do it, just that I find easy and cheap basically. Well, actually, I say cheap, I'm going to start with the expensive way first. And that is buy pre-made tackle for it. This is Westin Pro Stinger, and they come in loads of different sizes, loads of different companies make them. And it's basically tailor-made for rigging on the big shads. So yeah, basically what you do, you get your screw. You can have shallow screw, or you can have weighted ones. I'll put links to these in the description. They're just screw-in jig heads basically. Now, loads of different companies make them, loads of different sizes. Go from no weight, 5 gram, 10 gram, 15, 20, 30 if you're fishing deep water, whatever you need. This particular one, I'm going to use 5 gram screw-in jig head. And essentially what you do, line your jig head up, screw-in jig head up in the middle of the front of the face of the shad, screw that in, screw that in like that so it's centered, front of the bait. Make sure it's the right way up obviously. Just make sure the number on it is the right way. Then you're going to need the most important tool for when you're rigging these shads is split ring pliers. Get your rig in, find the front of it with the split ring, open that with the pliers, rig this on the, well, I don't keep dropping it. Rig this on the bottom ring. There's a top ring where your leader goes and a bottom ring for your rigging. So rig that onto the bottom there, and then simply it's got these little spikes on it. Spike them in at the right places there, and one for the back treble, and one will go there, and then there you go, rigged and ready to go. 2 trebles on it, 2 aught trebles, perfect for this size bait. Of course, if you're using a smaller one, you'll get a smaller rigging, but yeah, for this is the perfect size. I bought it specifically for this bait, so yeah, matches up nicely. And yeah, the hooks are in a perfect place. Of course, if you're fishing snaggier waters, I'd tag the hooks into the bait like this. Have the hooks tagged in a bit there, and then you get hung up a bit less on the bottom or on rocks or whatever. But if they are hanging, you do get better hookups. I have noticed that. Definitely, if the trebles are hanging, you tend to catch more. You tend to hook up better with your bites. You've got six exposed hook points there, rather than just 4. So yeah. So that is the easiest way, but the expensivest way. The next way takes a little bit longer. You need a bit more tools, but overall the price is cheaper if you're rigging a lot of shads up. So make one for this. smaller baits. I'm going to use smaller hooks. I'm going to use 1/0 trebles, Savage Gear Y trebles. I just got these because they're cheap and they're decent enough. Not 1/0, size 1, sorry. Size 1 trebles for this, 22cm bait, but it's quite a thin profile. When I'm choosing trebles, I try and choose ones that just, if it's rigged up, if you look from the top or the bottom, if the trebles protrude from the sides, either side of the bait, that's generally a big enough treble in my opinion. For example, like this one, it's got a thicker body, but it's more of a shorter body, but a size 1 treble, it doesn't come out the sides, so I'd use a size 1/0 or a size 2/0 for this. But yeah, it's just choosing the right treble for the right bait. You don't want to use too big so they stand out, get in the way, upset the way the bait swims or whatever, but you don't want to use too small because there's less chance of hooking up with the pike basically. So yeah, perfect size for this I found is size 1. So trebles, 2 of those. The wire we are going to use today is £60 nylon coated, cheap off eBay. Leave links for that in the description as well. You're going to need crimps. These are 1.6mm, but I'm actually going to be using 1.4mm. They're just open, so I didn't want to pick them up, but yeah, 1.4s, that's what I'm going to be using for this wire. Split rings, 8mm split rings, what I'm going to be using. Your screw-in head of choice as well. And for this, I'm going to shallow screw it, but I'm going to weight it with, if I can find there, some 3 SSG shot, which is 5 gram. And I'm going to rig the weight. I'll just get a shot out. So that's what they look like anyway. It's a 5 gram split shot. And I'm going to rig that on the wire under the belly, and I find with this it gives it, when the weight's on the head of these, they've got a real big flank, and if it's on the belly, still flanks but slightly less, which I prefer it just like that. So that's how I'm going to rig this one. The bigger one, I like it flanking more, it's a big bait, I want more action with it, but yeah, this one I like the weight on the belly, so that's how I'm going to do it. So start off, oh actually, tools you'll need for this: side snips, split ring pliers, and last but not least, crimping pliers. So not too many tools, but yeah, start off, shallow screw, just screw that in to the front of the shad, like so. Actually, do it that way. So the shallow screws in the front of the shad. Next, take the 8mm split ring, put that onto the shallow screw, like so. Now we're going to need 2 sections of wire, so I'll take this long bit, snap that off and just cut that in half. Probably won't need quite this much wire, but it's always nice to have a bit of extra. So you'll take 1 piece of wire, 1 crimp, put the crimp over the wire, put the wire through the split ring, pull enough of that through so you've got a bit of a tag end to put the crimp over, push that through, tighten it up. You don't want it too tight, you want it so it can move, but That'll be nice like that. And then, of course, your crimping pliers, and just crimp that nice and tight. Optional, just to make it look neater, you can get some shrink tube. Put this over the crimps and it just makes it look a bit nicer, and they do get a little bit less weed caught on them as well. So yeah, I'll just cut a little section of this off and put it on while we've got it out. With the shrink tube, you just slide it up over the crimp, and then either get a heat gun or a lighter, whatever you've got really. See if we've got a lighter. Yep. Just basically shrink that down. You don't need to apply too much heat to it, but just carefully shrink it over the crimp. Turn that round. Yeah. So that just makes that little joint there a little bit neater. And a little bit sleeker in the water as well. So that's your first bit. Shallow screwed split ring and your wire. Next step, you're going to take another split ring, 8mm again, and another crimp. Slide your crimp up there. Put your split ring on, push the other end through the split ring, and then this is where you decide where you want your front treble to be. So if you take your two trebles that you're going to be using and just pin them really on the bait where you'd want them to sit. So just eyeball that. That looks about right to me. Decent spaced out, but quite close to the tail still, quite close to the head, and yeah, looks about right. So you'll see where that front treble is going to be hanging from. So about there, and that's where you're going to want your front split ring to be, where that's hanging from. So you'll just tighten that up. I'm putting a shrink tube on already. But yeah, you'll just tighten this up to where that front treble is going to be hanging from. Like that. Crimping pliers. Crimp that there. Then you'll just want to cut your tag end off. And then from this front split ring, you'll just repeat it down to the back hook. So I'll take our next piece of wire, slide that through, slide a crimp onto it as well. Crimp that bit. Then for this rear treble, rather than take another split ring, I'll just crimp the treble straight onto the stinger rig. So crimp, treble, push that back through, see where I'm going to want this rigged, which will be a little bit further back than that. Looks about right. Crimp it. Cut your tag end off. And then take your split ring pliers again. Front split ring. You're going to want to put that front treble on it. So slide that on there. And essentially that is rigged, and you could fish it as is like that. Good to go. But obviously if you want your hanging hooks, you're going to want some basically hook hangers. Well, I don't know what they're called really, but something that allows you to hang your hooks. So you can buy those. I think you can get like 5 for £3 or something, so they're not too expensive, but they're easy to make as well. So I tend to just make them. I get some wire. This is 1mm wire. Cut a section off. Going to be using 2, so I'll cut that in half. And then I'll take some jewellery pliers. Crimp it about 3/4 of the way, about 2/3 up, like so. Bend that round that way, bend that round that way, slide that round, push that back halfway, slide it round that way, push that back halfway, and then get the crimping pliers and just neaten that up a bit. So when you've got something that looks like this, little loop in the end, and then 2 bits of wire coming down from it. You don't need jewellery pliers to do it, it just makes it a bit easier. I'll cut these to size. That one's short and that one a bit longer. And then just bend the end up so it's got a little bit of a hook on it. Like so, probably can't see it, but there's a little bit of a hook on that. And then you'll just slot this through your loop on your wire. Like so, and then simply push this into the plastic. And then you've got your hanging hooks. I haven't put one on this, but yeah, you put one at the front one as well. I just, yeah, done the rear one, but yeah, that's how you hang your hooks anyway. And then when a fish grabs it, it pulls this out, and it's away from the bait anyway. So your baits get saved a bit rigging like this, and yeah, works really well. Like as opposed to a jig head, it's quite hard to get a hook that'll come like quite far back on this. It'll ruin the action and the bait will just get ruined really easy. So that's a couple of ways you do it. The expensive way, where you buy the rigging, easier, but it's expensive if you're doing a lot of soft plastics, using a lot of different shads. Or the cheaper way. I mean, the stuff to make enough for like 10 riggings is probably the same price as to get 1 rigging. So yeah, it's a lot cheaper doing it like this. Yeah, there's a few different ways to do different shads. Like, for instance, a curly tail one like this, I'd probably just use one bigger treble in the middle, like a 2/0, rather than have two smaller ones, just because the body of it is only about 12 centimeters. It's all in the tail, and you can't have any hooks. You can't really have hooks on the tail because it'll ruin the action, yeah. So one bigger treble I'd have on there, and that'd just be perfect. Or a jig head and a treble, whatever you want to do. But yeah, it's just how I rig them anyway. And then with the slightly smaller ones, of course, you can jig head them and with a stinger, but it's not really effective with the larger ones over sort of 16 centimeters. You can't use jig heads effectively. So yeah, that's just a couple of ways I do it anyway, and yeah, I hope that answers some questions. Of course, I forgot to mention another way. Like this shad tease is rigged up how I've just showed you how I make them, just with the hanging hooks and the split ring on it. But there is another way. I use it on this broken shad tease that had its tail stolen yesterday. But you take one of these Savage Gear, can't remember what they're called now, offset riggings for their soft far plays, and add a stinger to that basically, and you can just rig them like that. Just push that through there at the front, level it up on the body where you want it to be, push that through, and then stinger spike goes in as well, and you can rig them like that. That's a super easy way, and that's obviously got a 3 SSG shot on that, which is 5 gram. Like I said, I forgot to do it on that, but yeah, like I said, that's how I weight them sometimes, rather than a weighted screw head. So yeah, that's about it. I hope you've learned something anyway. I hope I've said everything right. I feel like I forgot loads of stuff, but yeah, there's a few ways I do it anyway. Big shads and your medium sized shads. 27 centimeter this, by the way, that's 22. Yeah, that's kind of the size. That's kind of my go-to size at the minute, 22 centimeter. Perfect. So yeah, that's about it. As you probably noticed, this has gone up on a Sunday. I've changed my video days now to Sundays and Wednesdays. So yeah, catch you on Wednesday with the next video. And yeah, hopefully you now know how to rig your soft plastics better.